Hi there. I'm Mrs. Holly. I am the building principal at Proctor Elementary, and I today am going to share with you one of my favorites. It's called Mr. Peabody's Apples, and I'm going to show my age for just a minute, and I'm going to tell you that it's by the musician Madonna. So if you don't know who Madonna is, you need to look up who Madonna is. This is Mr. Peabody, and this is Billy Little. Mr. Peabody's Apples by Madonna. Welcome to Happyville. You can already begin to see what this is going to be about. Some baseball. In the town of Happyville, which wasn't a very big town, Mr. Peabody was congratulating his Little League team on a great game. They had not won, but no one really cared because they were having such a good time playing. Mr. Peabody was the history teacher at the local elementary school, and in the summertime, he dedicated every Saturday to organizing baseball games with other schools. Billy Little, which, well, he wasn't a very big boy, was one of Mr. Peabody's students. He loved baseball more than anything, and he thought Mr. Peabody was the greatest. After the game, he would always stay to help Mr. Peabody pick up the bats and the balls. And when they finished, Mr. Peabody would smile and say, "Thanks, Billy. Good job. I'll see you next Saturday." Then he would start his walk home along the main street of Happyville, which wasn't a very big street, waving to everyone, saying hello. Everyone would wave hello back. Along the way, he always passed Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market. Here, Mr. Peabody would stop and admire Mr. Funkadeli's apples. He would pick out the shiniest apple, drop it in his bag, and continue on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tittlebottom watched with curiosity at Mr. Peabody as he walked away with an apple. "That's strange," Tommy thought to himself. "Mr. Peabody didn't pay anyone for that apple." Tommy got on his skateboard and rushed to tell his friends. So here you see Tommy and you see Mr. Peabody. The following Saturday, Mr. Peabody's team played another game and they lost as usual. But no one seemed to care because they were having such a good time playing. Billy picked up the balls and the bats, and Mr. Peabody set off for his walk home. He waved to everyone he knew, and they waved back. Once again, he stopped outside Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market and picked up the shiniest apple, dropped it in his bag, and continued on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tittlebottom and his friends watched Mr. Peabody. They were amazed at what they saw. Mr. Peabody did not pay for his apple. They couldn't wait to tell their friends, who told their parents, who told their neighbors, who told their friends in the town of Happyville, which wasn't very big. The Saturday, after that, Mr. Peabody was standing all alone on the baseball field, wondering where everybody was. Then he saw Billy walking towards him with a really sad face. "Hello, Billy. I'm glad you're here, but where is the rest of the team?" asked Mr. Peabody. Billy remained silent. "What is it, Billy?" he asked again. Billy didn't look up. "Everybody thinks you're a thief," he said to the ground. Mr. Peabody looked confused. He took off his hat, scratched his head. "Who says I'm a thief? And what did I steal?" he asked. Tommy Tittlebottom and his friends said that they saw you take an apple from Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market twice, and they said you didn't pay for it, answered Billy. Ah, Mr. Peabody, putting back on his hat, said, let's go and have a talk with Mr. Funkadeli. Shall we? Hmm. They walked down the main street, which wasn't very big, and Mr. Peabody waved at all the people he knew, but some did not wave back. Some pretended they didn't even know him. Then finally they arrived at Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market. Out popped Mr. Funkadeli and said, "Hey, what are you doing here, Mr. Peabody? Why aren't you at the game?" "There wasn't a game today," said Mr. Peabody, "and I was wondering if I could take my apple earlier than usual." "Sure, why not?" said Mr. Funkadeli. "You pay for them every Saturday morning when you pick up milk. You can take them if you'd like. You want the big shiny one, Mr. Peabody?" Mr. Peabody took his apple, smiled, and offered it to Billy. "I would like to take the apple, Mr. Peabody, but I I have to go to Tommy and explain what's happening," said Billy. "When you find him, ask him to come over to my house. I would like to speak to him too," replied Mr. Peabody. A little while later, Billy found Tommy and told him what happened with the apples. He told Tommy that Mr. Peabody wanted to speak to him right away. So off Tommy ran, and when he arrived, he rang the doorbell, and Mr. Peabody came to the door. They looked at each other for a long while. "Oh dear, Mr. Peabody," said Tommy on the doorstep. "I didn't understand. I should have not said what I said, but it looked like you didn't pay for those apples." Mr. Peabody's eyebrows went up a little, and he felt a warm breeze blow across his face. "It doesn't matter what it looked like. What matters is the truth." Tommy looked down at his shoes and said, "I'm sorry. What can I do to make things better now?" Mr. Peabody took a deep breath, looked at the small cloud in the sky, and said, "I'll tell you what, Tommy. Meet me at the baseball diamond in 1 hour and bring a pillow stuffed with feathers." "Okay," said Tommy, and he ran off to his house to get a pillow. After an hour, Tommy went to Mr. Peabody and met him on the pitcher's mound. "Hello, Tommy," said Mr. Peabody. "Follow me and bring your pillow." Tommy followed Mr. Peabody to the top of the bleachers and wondered what was this all about. "It's windy, isn't it?" Mr. Peabody said, as they reached the very top of the bleachers. Tommy nodded his head in agreement. "Here's a pair of scissors. Now cut the pillow in half and shake the feathers out." Tommy looked confused, but he did it anyway. He thought it was a small price to pay, again, for Mr. Peabody's forgiveness. The wind carried the feathers, thousands of feathers, far and wide. Tommy looked relieved and said, "Is that all I have to do to make things better?" "There's one more thing," said Mr. Peabody. "Now you must go and pick all the feathers up." Tommy frowned. "I don't think that's possible," replied Tommy. "Well, It would be just as impossible to undo the damage you have done by spreading a rumor that I'm a thief, said Mr. Peabody. Each feather represents a person in Happyville. There was a long pause, and Tommy began to understand what Mr. Peabody was saying. Finally, he said, I guess I have a lot of work to do. Mr. Peabody smiled and said, Indeed you do. Next time, don't be so quick to judge a person. And remember the power of your words. Then he handed Tommy the shiny red apple, and he made his way home. The end. I hope you've enjoyed Mr. Peabody's apples. I do. I share it with students all the time because I want you to understand the power of your words and the power of kindness. So thinking before you speak and thinking before you jump to a conclusion, ask questions. Have a great rest of your day and year.